Welcome back to this first of 5 Genesee County primary election forums here at the White Horse. I'm Tom Sumner. Today we're exploring 2 races for the Genesee County Board of Commissioners. This hour we'll learn about the 2 Democrats running for the 3rd District seat currently held by incumbent Jamie Curtis. Before I get to the introductions, I want to thank the White Horse and all of you who have gathered here today. I want to also thank singer Heather Jones and accompanist Randy Dunkley for providing music during the breaks at this live presentation. Heather is leaving the area this fall. You will be missed by a great many local music fans. Now the introductions. In a moment I will introduce the candidates and they will be given an opportunity to make brief opening statements. But first, our esteemed panelists. I'll begin by reintroducing our esteemed panel of premier political pundits. They are Paul Rosicki from Mott Community College. Paul, welcome. Thanks
good to
for
be
being
here.
And George Moss from the University of Michigan Flint. George, always good to see you, my friend.
Thank you again, Tom.
And last but certainly not least, our media guest panelist, WFNT's news director, Jason Cooper. Jason, good to have you aboard.
Thanks, Tom.
Now on to the candidates and the rules of engagement. If you don't know by now, there are 2 Democrats running in the August primary for the 3rd District seat on the Genesee County Board of Commissioners. They are incumbent Jamie Curtis. Welcome, Jamie. Good to see you again. And Burton City Council member Danny Thomas Wells. Welcome, Danny. Good to see you again as well.
Good to see you, Tom.
In a moment, I will give each of you 90 seconds for an opening statement, and we'll begin the questions from the panel. There will be an opportunity for a closing statement at the end as well. On to the forum, but first a few guidelines. Time is tight. We're going to try and keep it equal, so try to be specific and brief when answering. Again, I know that's an oxymoron in any political discussion, but you will have 90 seconds for each answer. When you hear this bell, you have 15 seconds to complete your answer. We'll start the opening statements with Danny Wells, and the first question will start with Jamie Curtis, then we will rotate which candidate answers first and last throughout the rest of the forum. I caution the panelists again that you have 30 seconds in which to set up context for each of your questions. If you get to 30 seconds, you will hear the bell and I will ask you to ask your question. Now for the opening statements. Remember, you have 90 seconds. When you hear the bell, you have 15 seconds to finish your comment, and please address your comments to the panel or the audience and not to each other. We want a forum, not a debate. Mr. Wells, we start with you. You have 90 seconds for an opening statement.
Thank you, Mr. Sumner, and thank you, esteemed panelists. And thanks for inviting us out here. This is a big deal, and I take it very seriously. I've been on the Burton City Council for 14 years. I've served on every committee. I've been the president, the vice president, finance chair, legislative chair. I'm currently the public access chairman, and that's a position that I really enjoy because of all the new technology and bringing people government to their homes. I started my career as a football and baseball coach in the community when I was 17 years old, and had a pretty successful career at both Atherton and Bendel and Davison, and loved every minute of it. Had an opportunity to get into politics when Ted Hammond moved up to county commissioner, and was appointed out of a group of 17 people. Wasn't what I thought it was when I got into it, and I've learned a lot over the last 14 years, and I'm still learning. So I think it's time to move up to the next level now. I think my form of leadership is very important at this time. Thank you.
Okay, and moving on to Jamie Curtis. You have 90 seconds.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, panelists. It's an honor to be here tonight. I am the commissioner for the 3rd District. I've been there for 8 years. The last 5 years, I've been elected to the chairmanship for the past 5 years on a 9-0 vote. There's 9 commissioners. It's been unanimous every time. Under this leadership in the county is definitely come through the most difficult times in modern day era. This recession has been very, very difficult. Under my leadership, when I took over chair in 2010, we had $572,000 in our rainy day fund. Today, it's up $9.5 million. The county works in committee structure. No one individual has unilateral decision making, but under my leadership, this county has came full circle and come from $572,000 back up to $9.5 million. And this election is about leadership, fiscal responsibility, economic development, and innovation. And that's what I bring to this election, is those four things, and that's what I've done as the chairman. And thank you.
Well, we didn't even have to ring the bell on you. That's nice when people are concise. We'll move on to the questions that may get a little bit lengthier in some of the responses. First up for the question is the first question goes rather to Jamie Curtis, and the first question is up to you, Paul Rozicki.
All right, thank you. One of the biggest issues facing the county and the state this year is the bad repair of the roads and bad condition of the roads. What can the county do to help that? And in particular, would you favor a tax increase, a gasoline tax increase, to provide funds to rehabilitate the county roads?
Well, let me say this. I'm very disappointed that the legislative body has not addressed the roads. At the rate we're going right now, the roads will never be fixed in my lifetime. There's no cheaper money than today. The state has the ability to borrow up to $2 billion, put a lot of people to work that will pay taxes, that will be able to provide for their families, make their mortgages, and pay bills, and fix roads. People will be able to buy cars, insurance will come down, road repairs will come down. And so I'm disappointed, but at the county, all we can do is keep making our issues aware to our state representatives and our legislators, because that is where that decision has to be made. Thank you.
Mr. Wells, same question.
Well, it's on knocking doors. That's the number one. You're absolutely right. That's the number one problem out there is roads. At the city of Burton, we've taken a different turn. We, during this budget year, decided to borrow against some of our sewer fund, basically, to fix Center Road, and we've made roads a priority. The Center Road was originally scheduled to be done in 2017, and I'm talking the piece from Atherton Road to Lippincott. We'll take that money in 2017, but for the next 3 years, we'll pay interest back to our sewer fund. So it really is cost effective for us to do it that way, and it's kind of thinking outside the box. I believe we can do the same thing at the county level. But we have to pound our state legislature. We have to pound our senators and our congressmen, because those people, they just walked away and left us all holding the bag here. The roads have to be fixed, and they have to be fixed right. That's the other issue I have. With the new technology that's out there right now, you can find out what other states and even other countries are doing to make their roads last longer. And if you look at Germany, other countries with the climate similar to ours, they don't have the same issues that we have because they do things differently. So instead of wasting that money by patching and patching and patching, I'm for fixing them right in the first place and getting it done. Thank you.
All right, the next question goes to Jason Cooper from WFNT, and it will go first to Mr. Wells.
Thank you both for being here today. Councilman Wells, I'm going to stick with public safety. It was something I asked last session. I think we're all aware of the public safety issues in the city of Flint. Does the county, if elected county commissioner, how can you do a little bit more to help the city of Flint? Do you see more being done with the sheriff's department, perhaps to help the city of Flint? Are you worried about any crime spreading into other communities with the city of Flint, with cuts maybe happening later this year?
Public safety is absolutely my number one priority, and it should be everyone's. Without a safe environment, businesses aren't going to stay here. Our residents are going to leave. We need to, what we did in Burton, we took the initiative and went out for a 6.5 mils for our police officers last year. We went from 28 police officers to 42. If you look at the statistics since those police officers were added, it's phenomenal, and we're protecting our borders. Now we need to have that conversation with the city of Flint to see how we can help them before they get to our borders. As a county commissioner, I I think the sheriff does a marvelous job with what he's got, but we need to go after more money and more funding. You can have all the money in the world, though, if it's not being used effectively, it's another waste. So we need to sit down, get a plan, which is what we did in Burton. Our guys came up with a plan, a game plan, how they were going to police the area, and they're sticking to it. And it's making incredible strides in keeping crime down. So and we're going to start seeing that turnaround of businesses. We've already started seeing a few businesses that are interested in Burton. We've already started seeing some people that want to move back into the area. So just make sure you spend the money right when you do get it. That's important.
All right, Mr. Curtis, same question.
Public safety is priority one, no doubt. And the county has collaborated all throughout the county. There's 28 taxing authorities. We are in collaboration with every one of them. We are the lead for a grant out of the state of Michigan for e-warrants, where electronically warrants going from the prosecutor's office right to the police agency. So we're the pilot for it in the state of Michigan out of 83 counties. I think that speaks volumes to what we have done here at Genesee County. The Sheriff Department has helped out every place that he can help out. And the money is very difficult because it is not being wasted. It's being spent very, very efficiently and the biggest bang for the buck. And everybody's at the table. City of Flint's at the table. The chief of police throughout the county are at the table. We work collaboratively all the time, and we keep working toward shared services to be able to better through information and technology, through jail management. We're implementing a jail management system to where the officers can access that and find out where those people are, whether they're in jail or been released or whatever. So we are doing our best that we can do with IT and sharing information, and that's what it's all about. Thank you.
Thank you. The question now comes from George Moss, and Mr. Curtis, you will be the first to respond.
I want to, first of all, thank both gentlemen for coming to the forum and for your service. I am bothered, Mr. Curtis, by, I do understand what you said about the fact that you had monies that have increased since you've been in the position that you're in. Every tax dollar counts. There's a person that went to jail that was paid $65,000 of taxpayers' money and served 37 months in jail, Sam Riddle. What did you do in your role? You said you were unanimously elected 5 times to the council, to the county's position. What did you do to get that money back that was given to Sam Riddle? No service was delivered of taxpayers' money. What did you do to bring that situation to a resolution?
I don't recall that particular situation. It could have been a lawsuit, and not all lawsuits are handled by the board. There is a risk management system in place at the county, and that's comprised of Corporation Counsel, Risk Management, and the controller, and whatever agency or law firm that may have handled it. And sometimes they do a arbitration agreement, and they bring that before the board, and then the board weighs that to risk to benefit as to whether you try it or you settle it, and that case may have fallen underneath that limit because I don't recall it.
Same question goes to Mr. Wells now.
I'm not familiar with the case, but I'm very familiar with all the lawsuits that are going on in the county and the tax money that's being wasted with them. And we have lawsuits right now against 3 elected officials: the drain commissioner, the treasurer, and the county clerk. That's unprecedented. No, I've never even heard of it. No one's ever heard of it. It's absolutely bizarre, and they're called friendly lawsuits. But the money that we're spending isn't friendly. We could be using it somewhere else, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. We need to have someone in there that's watching over that taxpayer money and making sure that if we have to have a lawsuit, that it's something that means something. something that's winnable too. I mean, most of these lawsuits aren't winnable. They're discrimination cases. They're people that have been let go without any reason. Um, it's just lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit, and to the point where almost $9 million in the last 30 months, and there's a stack of lawsuits coming up behind them. You, the leader in that township's got to sit down, or in the county's got to step down and talk to people, and especially other elected officials that are doing key jobs. You need to work together. Suing each other is just not going to get it. And it gives a bad taste to businesses and people that want to move to Genesee County.
Thank you, Mr. Wells. Welcome back to this Genesee County Board of Commissioners District 3 Candidate Forum with Jamie Curtis and the incumbent and challenger Danny Wells from the Burton City Council, facing our premier political panelists, pundits, if you will, Paul Rosicki, Jason Cooper, and George Moss. And right back to the questions. We'll start the questions with Paul Rosicki. And the first question, I believe, goes to Mr. Wells.
All right, again, thank you for being here. And the question I want to ask is, what's your view of the county executive, in particular, in terms of making Flint work together better with the Out County? Been a lot of friction there. Would a county executive be a way of making Flint function together with the Out County area?
I don't know if it would make Flint function better, but I'm interested in the idea. I think that has to be discussed. I would be willing to definitely sit down and talk about bringing in a county executive, someone with a professional background. I mean, let's face it, even though we're elected officials, sometimes the guys with some business skills or some educational skills, most of them aren't running for politics anymore, okay? But the ones that do, they don't always get elected because they come across as someone that they're honest to people, and that hurts them, okay? And that's a sad thing, but it's true. So if you brought in a professional, a county executive with some business background and some background with getting along with people and making things happen, I think that's absolutely the next step in this county. And I would definitely be willing to move forward in that direction.
Thank you for your brevity. We didn't get to hear the bell, but Mr. Curtis, the same question goes to you now.
Thank you. I'm not opposed to a county executive. Some time ago, it was on the ballot. It was turned down overwhelmingly by the residents of Genesee County. If it goes again before the people, it will be their choice whether or not to have a county executive. Unfortunately, to that point, a county executive would be anybody that chooses to run and anybody that may win the election and not necessarily not come with that resume as Mr. Wells had spoke to. So you have a couple options. One would be a county manager that would be hired by the board, work for the board, and simply retain their job with annual reviews and have to carry at least a majority of the board voting members, 5 out of 9. I'm not opposed to it, never have been. I can speak to it better than anybody because as the chairman of the county, I know that there needs to be that one voice for direction. You have 29 department heads, and when you have, like this time around, you have 2 open seats out of 9, there's a lot of changeover, and a lot of people do not know county government, how it runs, and it runs in committee form. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question comes from Jason Cooper, and we'll go first to Jamie Curtis.
I want to talk a little bit about education. Education can be a reason people leave a community, and I think I was talking to Paul earlier, and he said Genesee County experienced a loss of residents for the first time in a long time recently. Flint schools made news last week. They announced their budget deficit, nearly double what they had originally thought. Clio schools, Mount Morris schools also experiencing or having financial troubles. Are there too many school districts throughout Genesee County? Do you see consolidation? Do you see emergency managers maybe being appointed? And what can the county do to better help the school district succeed?
We should help wherever we can, and we should enter into the discussions with them. As far as how many school districts, when you have a population decline, the answer is inevitable. You know, look at Lapeer. Long time, Lapeer East and West. Is that a bad thing? No. You know, education is priority one, and it's all about educating the children and providing the best education you possibly can. And sometimes that means giving up your mascot and doing what's best for the children. Not only do people leave the area because of education, people won't come to the area because of education. As a father, I purchased my home and built where I did because I picked the school system first. And that's what most parents do. They want the best education for their child. And so education is a very, very top priority when you select where you're going to live and whether or not you're going to stay in that community. So, and as far as the county is concerned, the county needs to put people together in the same room and try to work out the differences wherever they can. There's not a lot we can do other than try to foster those relationships and bring it together. Thank you.
Boy, that bell thing really keeps the length of the answers down a little bit. Same question goes to you, Mr. Wells.
Well, I'm an advocate for public education. I was educated in public schools. My sons were. They came out and are very well-rounded individuals, and most of their friends are. Charter schools, on the other hand, I think have really bitten into public education, and I know that there is a group of people that are really pushing charter schools. Recently, there was a study, and they may not be working out like they thought they would. So we need to, number one, we really don't have a lot to say about it. That would come from the state, but we could throw our 2 cents worth in it. And by making our county safer, by making our roads passable, by bringing in businesses, you're going to bring in more people that'll fill up those public schools. Do we have too many? We probably do. There's no question. We probably do. But there's some importance to those communities that Mr. Curtis talks about mascots. Those are important. Those are prideful things. And I think that's the last thing that we have in this county is people pride for their community. And once you take that away, now you're chipping away at something that people, are historically bound by. So we have to be very careful with that. I'm all for having pride in our community, and I think we have to bring that back to the forefront.
George Moss gets the next question, and it goes first to Danny Wells.
I think it's very refreshing to hear both of you say that you would support a county executive. I think that's an excellent thing to do because we don't have coordination on the 3 levels of government, and that's an excellent way to do that. But I'm bothered, Mr. Wells, by your saying that 2 words bother me in terms of finance. One is taxes, and the other one is borrowing. And you said that you borrowed from the sewage fund with the idea of paying it back later. Taxpayers want to vote for a specific thing and keep the money coordinated in that drawer, and it's robbing Peter to pay Paul. My question is, are you going to be the county commissioner that's going to be taking money out of one drawer to pay in another coffer?
Not necessarily, no. What we originally talked about was going out for a bond, but it wasn't cost effective for us to do that. So we brought in our business agent from Detroit, and we asked him for some different scenarios on the best way to do it. So it wasn't something that the city council just jumped at, and it was actually not even thought of by us until it was brought up by him. But we can borrow money from our sewer fund at 1% interest for 3 years and get paid back. So I think every different aspect is going to be a little bit different, but in that particular case, it was really a no-brainer. When you can borrow $1.5 million for 3 years, pay 1% interest, you're paying yourself back, and then you're going to get the money from the state at the end of the day, and you're made whole again. I'm all for that. I'll do that every time. Now, if you're talking long-term, 5, 7, 10 years down the road, it's time to fix the road again by the time you start paying that back. So it never, I understand where you're coming from. You never get caught back up. But this is a specific plan for this one specific project, and it just made all the sense in the world to us.
Okay, same question moves on to Mr. Curtis.
I'm a firm believer in a truly balanced budget. The county doesn't have enterprise funds like what he's talking about at the city level. So county government is totally different than local government. And Mr. Wells voted, not one budget year last year, but this budget year, to balance their budget by borrowing money from their fund balance. That's a slippery slope to nowhere. Well, you can, in these times with the declining revenues, and the revenues are coming back at the rate of inflation or 5% or whatever less, and you're borrowing money from other funds, like he said, even at 1.5, you have to pay it back. Well, you can't pay back those loans from the other funds and continue to take from fund balance, the general fund balance, to balance your budget. And when I say truly balanced budget at the county, that's what I mean, a truly balanced budget. We're trying to maintain our fund balance, if not build it, and we're not going to balance the budget by continuing to take from the fund balance. It is a recipe for disaster. Thank you.
Okay, Paul Rozicki has the next question, and it goes first to Mr. Curtis.
A few years ago, Genesee County combined the Register of Deeds and the county clerk positions. Was that a wise move? There's been a little talk about going back to separating them out again. Was it wise to do it in the first place, and should there be some consideration of separating those jobs out again?
It was a wise move. It was well thought out, and it was looked and researched by other counties. There's no reason why it won't work. It's been working. It worked in other counties really well, and it can work in this county also very well. As far as going back, I don't think we'll ever see it go back. There was some discussion about it, as you know, and I said I would appoint a committee, and I let cooler minds prevail. Those commissioners were upset, and I put it in committee form. And so I don't think it'll go back. I think it'll be a success. I think going forward, it'll be the way it is. When you look at the amount of people between the two offices, you're only talking about 23 people. One elected official should very easily handle 23 people with support staff, and they have constitutionally ability to appoint a deputy clerk, and they have done that. So I think there's more than enough management to run 23 people, and I don't think the taxpayers need to pay for another elected official. Thank you.
The question now goes to Mr. Wells.
Could you repeat the question?
Recently, the county has combined the Register of Deeds and county clerk position. Was that a wise decision in the first place, and should we go back to separating those out if the option was there?
I think it was a wise decision. You took away a bureaucrat and a paycheck and a pension from someone that really is just a figurehead there. Let's face it. I like Mr. Gleason. He's a heck of a politician, but he's paying people to do that job. We could probably do that a lot across the board. Some of those jobs shouldn't be political jobs, in my opinion. So that's my take on it. The people that always did that job, they're all doing that job now. We just eliminated one politician, okay? As far as Mr. Curtis's comments on borrowing to make our fund from our fund balance, we absolutely had to do it. There was no other choice. And if this millage wouldn't have passed, Burton would have been in deep trouble. But the county also has its issues, and they're having to fill out a letter every year to the state on how they're going to pay back some of the debts that they have in other departments. Now, granted, the general fund is at $9.5 million, but they're also about $9.5 million underfunded in other budgets as well. So you're not getting the whole story there. That's my point.
Thank you, Mr. Wells. The next question comes from Jason Cooper from WFNT, and we'll go first to Mr. Wells.
Governor Snyder came into office 2010, 2011, and cut revenue sharing to counties and local governments. And as a way to offset some of those revenue sharing cuts, he wants to see more shared services. Do you see areas where the county could better position themselves sharing services with another county government? For instance, there's been talks about a regional jail system, something along those lines.
Yeah, listen, I'm all for the new technology that's out there. I don't think there's any reason Genesee County can't have their own television station. And on that station, you could have every municipality involved and share ideas and services through that, especially in the IT department. Um, the technology makes it very simple, actually. Uh, we do share services in fire and somewhat in police. We have all those agreements in place. We do share services as far as trading off road fixes in a certain situation, road repairs, and that has to happen. The county should work together, and you need some leadership in there that will bring people together that would want them to do that. That's what's missing. I advocated 5 years ago to have a meeting and have every leader in the county meet at Kettering or meet at Mott College and get us all in a room so we could see each other's face, see what we look like, scratch and sniff each other, and throw some ideas out there, okay? I advocated that. No one wanted to do it, but it's a great idea. And that's the only way we're all going to finally work together and talk about actually making a difference with shared services.
Thank you. Same question goes to Mr. Curtis.
I've probably been the biggest proponent of shared services than any leader that I know in Genesee County. 8 years ago, I tried to put together a regional fire department. About a year or two after that, 12 supervisors were overturned and lost their jobs. They fought hard and resisted to do a regional fire department. It was right then, it's right now. I have formed partnerships with Oakland County. It's called G2G, government to government, to where you can buy things online from the register of deeds, from the clerks, from the treasurer, and soon to be from the health department, where people can buy things online, information that they need from their home or from their smartphone, wherever it may be, and have it sent and to their home or to their printer and print it. So, and I also have worked on electronic payroll, and the county is implementing it, putting it in place, and then it will go throughout, hopefully, the GISD school system, and everybody will be able to partner on that. And so it's real time, on time. People will be paid when they're there, and it's a win-win for the taxpayers and everybody. Governor Snyder's initiative for revenue sharing killed counties. Cities like Burton were able to participate in EVIP, Economic Vitality Incentive Programs. Counties were eliminated and were not able to participate in that. So the first year, we were sitting on the sidelines.
Thank you. The next question goes to George Moss, and the first responder will be Mr. Curtis.
I'm always bothered by the cavalier manner in which politicians treat taxpayers' money. Mr. Wells talked about taking money out of one kitty, putting it somewhere else. You, Mr. Curtis, have had no bid contracts on at least two occasions that's been reported. How do you justify, with the tax base being so limited as it is, to take any contract without it being bidded out to get the best bid for the best service at the least cost? How do you defend having done that on two occasions that I wrote down in terms of what has been reported in the newspaper?
Well, the last one you're referring to is purchasing, and that's very easy to explain. Ever since 2011, we were brought together as leaders over at Mott College on shared services, and that was one of the low-hanging fruits that we thought that we could bring everybody together in purchasing. We went to our purchasing department and asked them to build an RFP, and went there and went there and went there. And unfortunately, he could not put together, because of the purchasing in the county is so convoluted and so difficult, that he was unable to come up with it. So while we were working with all those agencies and shared services in Flint Genesee Chamber and Flint Genesee, the other agency that was handling that, we were able to reach out to people that were willing to come in. Unfortunately, our purchasing department director died, so the county board moved forward, and we went out and brought in a company that had the best familiarities with the county and give us the best price because it is so difficult. We didn't know how to build an RFP. And when you didn't know how to build an RFP, it didn't make sense to go hire a consultant to come in to try to tell you how to build an RFP. So we did the 2-for-1. We got them to recognize our faults and build a plan that we can initiate going forward. Thank you.
Mr. Wells, same question.
No bid contracts at any level are bad for business. If you handpick your guy, of course he's going to come back and tell you what you want to hear. I've been in business for 40 years. I've been in those situations. I've had, oh, well, go ahead and bid, and then I get underbid. The next guy, when the guy gets the job, oh, I didn't do this, I didn't do this, I didn't do this, so you're $20,000 higher than you are. You have to go out and get a sealed bid on some of these projects, especially something as important as a purchasing department. And I don't think that was a bad idea. I think it probably needed to happen. But there is 7 other companies that do the same thing as the company that got it that never got a shot at it. And that's just not right. It's not fair. The other one you're talking about is a Chronos system. That was $1 million plus system. There's no way you should give a no bid contract on $1 million plus system. And it's not even working yet. I got reports the last 2 months that thing is still not up and running, and no one's being held accountable for it. That's what happens when you do a no bid contract. You sign off of that, baby, it's yours, and that's not right. I would never put up with that.
All right, thank you, Mr. Wells. We're going to take a short break. We'll come back in just a couple, 3 minutes. And welcome back. As promised, we'll get back to the questions of Jamie Curtis and Danny Wells from our esteemed panelists, Paul Rosicki, Jason Cooper, and George Moss. Paul Rosicki, and then we also have the candidate closing statements coming up as well. Paul, you have the next question, and it goes to, who did we leave off with? It goes to Mr. Wells.
Mr. Wells, in fact, responding to comments you made earlier, in recent years there's been a lot of conflict between the board and department heads, the sheriff, the prosecutor, registered, the county clerk, treasurer, and so forth. What would you do as a county commissioner to reduce that and to reduce the lawsuits and the cost of those lawsuits in the future?
I would let those people do their job. Okay, micromanaging is a killer. In any business, and you have to get along with people. You have to find some common ground with people. I would say the sheriff and the prosecutor, they know much more about their job than I do. As long as they stay under budget, there's no reason for me to get involved with that at all. The treasurer especially, I mean, that's a very important position. Leave those people alone. Let them do their job. If they need something, you're there for them. But you just watch their budget. As long as that budget, as long as they're staying within their means, there's really no reason to have any more interaction than say, hey, how you doing? Everything going okay? You need me for anything? If you got a problem, I want to be the first one to know. And then we'll solve it. But the constant lawsuits, I mean, that just ruins the reputation of this county. We're not going to get any businesses to come here with that hanging over our head. We're not going to get people to move here. Well, we see people are moving out. 12,000 people over the last 3 or 4 years. That's a lot. That's a lot. And it's not going to get any better. So find some common ground. Listen, I've been the low man on the totem pole, I think, every year since I've been on city council, except maybe one. And, you pick your battles. But you don't sue somebody. You sit down and work it out to some kind of an amiable agreement that you can both live with and move forward. Move the county forward, for goodness sake.
Thank you. Mr. Curtis, you have same question.
If you could get 50% of the people in here to agree, it would be amazing. When you get 100% of the people to agree, it's really something. 9-0 vote. Every lawsuit was a 9-0 vote. I mean, that speaks volumes to what it is. There's not one commissioner telling any co-elected how to run their department, what to do or what not to do. Mr. Wells says it's about their budget, keeping them in budget. That's what it is all about. They were given a budget that the county taxpayers could afford, that kept the county from being taken over by the governor on an EFM, and everybody had to stay within their budget. The clerk, his lawsuit was about serviceable levels, and the former clerk that was doing the same job with the same amount of people never sued. So it wasn't hard for 9-0. And when you get sued, you have to defend yourself. It's just automatic. And for $100, anybody can go and sue you. So the lawsuit is not something that the board wanted. We tried to work it out with them. But when they asked for 10 additional people over and above the guy that was doing that job for 20, 30 some years prior to, it's very difficult in these times when you don't have the money to give 10 people. And then the next department head would come and ask for the same thing, and it would just keep mothballing. Thank you.
Next question comes from Jason Cooper and begins with Mr. Curtis.
Commissioner Curtis, Genesee County, one of a handful of counties to be part of the I-69 International Trade Corridor. Want to know how the county could best maximize being a part of that group, and maybe how you can bring more into Genesee County than perhaps some of the, other counties that are part of that, Lapeer, St. Clair, Shiawassee. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm very proud of the I-69 corridor. I was there. I was one of the charter members. I was the one that signed it. It's a very good collaborative. It came out of Lansing, was one of the governor's initiatives. It since has expanded and included the regional in the Thumb area. We were given the grant at the county, $250,000, to start bringing all those people together. It's based on intermodal transportation. We have shipping, we have rail, we have truck, and we have an international airport. And so we were all working very, very diligently, collaboratively, to bring jobs here. The water line is very, very important to this whole region because it severs us away from that 40-year tether to Detroit, farthest elevation, farthest height, biggest cost. That economic development turnaround will be because of that water line, because we were priced right out of the market. We have all of the tools, we have the land, we have the Renaissance zones, and that's what comes with the I-69 corridor. So we're constantly marketing the region for diversification, food processing plants, agricultural, all of those things that are non-related to automotive sector, trying to find our own niche for our region, and I think we'll be very successful in doing it. Thank you.
Mr. Wells, same question.
Well, listen. Every few years we come up with a new brainchild to use our transportation, and we have some of the finest transportation systems in Michigan. I'm somewhat amazed that the federal government doesn't recognize the I-69 corridor as one of their fundable modes of transportation. And I have several customers that are part of that corridor. The fact of the matter is, businesses aren't in a hurry to come to Genesee County, and it from everything I just said, lawsuits, people bickering, people leaving. That's the only thing that'll really expand that I-69 corridor, and I think it's a good idea. I voted for it in the city of Burton when they came talked about it. But you have to do more than just start something. You have to continue to work at it, and it has to be recognized by the federal government if you're going to get the proper funds to really make this thing explode. But it starts at the county level. Those people have to get along there, and we have to move that forward. I think the pipeline will make a huge difference, but that's my thought on that.
Thank you, Mr. Wells. The last question goes to George Moss, if not the last word, George. And, and the first response will come from Mr. Wells.
Mr. Wells, I'm still bothered by your comment about taking money out of one coffin and putting it in another. But my question to you would be, what do you do as a member of the county commission to coordinate your voice on this level with the state level? Because the reason why we have a problem with the roads right now is because they're doing on the state level what you're doing, and that is taking money out of the funding for the roads, putting it elsewhere. If you're doing it here, then how are you going to coordinate it on the state level? Anyway, the pipeline, how do you propose to be the advocacy at this level and the pipeline into the state so we can have some coordination here for a change?
Well, I agree. You have to work with someone on the state level. And I've done it, even as a city councilman. I worked on several projects. I sat on the transportation committee at the Michigan Municipal League. Like I told you, that if it makes sense and you have money coming back that you know is there coming back, that, to me, that was a no-brainer as far as moving that. But the state, you have to push these guys at the state level. And partisan politics is the worst thing that ever happened to our country, but especially in the state of Michigan. People just won't do the job, and it's a shame. And that's hopefully we'll see some changes in this coming election. But you've got people with two different trains of thoughts that can't come together to fix anything. And I'm not for raising the gas tax to fix the roads. I think that money's there. I think they use it somewhere else. I think it's being wasted. I go up I-75 2 or 3 times a month, and they tore up the same piece of road every year for the last 10 years. Why? Why doesn't anybody ask those questions? That's the kind of questions I would ask. So, yeah, I think you hold those people accountable. Accountability is the key to just about everything in government.
All right, Mr. Curtis, same question.
You definitely have to have relationships. You have to have a coordination. We have a big delegation here in Genesee County, and I reach out to them all the time, if not often. And they know that roads are a very, very difficult subject here in Genesee County. The roads are falling apart. You can go anywhere outside of Genesee County, go north. But the problem is that we have old acts, Act 51, and how they collect the money and how they distribute the money out. And instead of going it to the highest, greatest need of density in roads, it goes to rural areas that can tear up the road that they just put in 3 years later and it doesn't even need to, or widen it, or do more striping or improvements to it. So all of those things have to be looked at, but you have to have people coming together for the people and fix the roads and find out how to do it with the money that you have now, and if you have to go out, be accountable for the money that you do go out and seek and bring back to pay for those roads. But paving the roads and fixing the roads and doing it right will create jobs, and when you create jobs, it's a win-win for everybody.
All right. As promised, you each get 90 seconds for closing remarks. We started the opening statements with Mr. Wells, so we begin the closing statements with Mr. Curtis.
Thank you, Tom, and thank you, panelists, for being here tonight. It was a very honorable, and I'm very pleased to be here. My record is one that I'm very proud of. I'm running on my record. I'm not running from my record. If you look my last 5 years when I had to take over a county that had $572,000 to its name, and one day's wage is $250,000 at the county. You have to make very, very tough decisions. You have to bring a whole board along with you or a majority. And most often, if not every time, it was a 9-0 vote. And if there was any vote that was not a 9-0 vote, it was 7-2. And I think that's remarkable. We stayed together as a team. We've made the tough decisions. We brought this county back. Mr. Wells mentioned chronos. I did too. Time and attendance. And time and attendance was a bought and paid for grant because of our innovation, because of our shared services, because we were rewarded. It didn't cost 1 penny to Genesee County taxpayers. It was all paid for by a grant from the state of Michigan. And we have timelines, and we are meeting those timelines and putting that in. When you transition from paper to electronic, it takes a while, and we're bringing all of that information and technology on board. And I thank you very much for inviting me here today. Thank you.
Mr. Wells, 90 seconds for a closing statement.
Thanks again for having us out here. Listen, I've got 40 years of community service because I love my community. When we grew up, we didn't have much money. I still don't have much money. So what I can give back to the community, that's what makes me feel good. I take some pride in that. And I think pride's a huge part of Genesee County. It's a huge part of Flint. The Bendel district where my kids went to school, man, you can't say anything bad about Bendel. Bentley's the same way. Atherton's the same way. You have to have pride, and you have to be ready to work with people and willing to work with people and pick your fights. In my opinion, in order to move this county forward, we need new leadership. We hear about 9-0 votes, 7-2 votes. 9-0-7-2 all the time, every one of them, 9-0-7-2. That tells me there's no discussion, there's no debate, no one's doing their homework. That doesn't happen on the Burton City Council. I'm going to tell you that right now. We earn our money there. We don't just go in and say, okay, I got a paycheck. What do we got to do? Check off, check. That's not right. That's scary, especially when you hear it time and time again, 9-0-7-2. We need to have someone in there asking questions, and someone that's going to get answers and hold people accountable. Thanks again for having us out here. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And that wraps it up for this first of 5 candidate forums. And I want to say thank you especially to the candidates for participating. It's important for people to get to know you and who's running and what your thoughts are on these things. And so I thank all of the candidates that were here today and this hour. Jamie Curtis and Danny Wells, thank you both for being here. I also, if you'll bear with me, want to say thank you to some very special people that make these forums really cook, and that's our premier political pundits, starting with Paul Rosicki from Mott Community College, George Moss from University of Michigan Flint, and they are bookending WFNT's news director, Jason Cooper. Thank you all for being here and being part of this. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
I want to say thank you to some technical support from Captain Jack from RLX Sound, the sound you want. Also.